Very pleased to see everybody to this very special meeting, a screening of the film, which some of you may have already watched. Thousands have watched it already on the Guardian website. It's been watched by thousands of people. We're really pleased tonight to have Kyri Evangelou, the video producer, with us of the film Is My Neighbourhood Poisoning Me, together with Guardian journalist Jo Griffin, who has written 3 articles on Southall Waterside for The Guardian. And following the film, there will be a Q&A and discussion. So if you would like to use the chat function to ask any questions, we will pick those up later in the evening. Without giving any spoilers, I want to draw people's attention in the film to a scene of residents meeting in Southall. It's being addressed by a person we know to be Mark Wiltshire, and he is the director of, to quote, Safer Communities and Housing. So please listen very carefully to what he says in the film and see what you think about what he says. Could we ask everybody to mute now so that we have a smooth running and we can hear what is the film, and so we don't want any extra background noise. So we're welcoming Jo Griffin and Kyri very much indeed. And also on the panel tonight with Kyri and Jo, we're very pleased to have Virendra Sharma, Labour MP for Ealing Southall, and Dr. Onkar Sahota, London Assembly Member for Ealing and Hillingdon. We also are delighted to welcome Perrine Machuel and her colleague Hannah Stockwell from Mapping for Change, which is a social enterprise who are partners in a European project called D-Noses, which aims to find new ways to tackle odour pollution. So if you have any questions you'd like to put to any of the panel, plus people from the CASH group who have experience of the issues and indeed are featured in the film, please type the questions using the chat function. Before the screening of the film, which is one of the main things we're gathered here tonight to see, I would like to invite you to view a short clip of the announcements that Councillor Julian Bell made at the public meeting on the 16th of July about air quality monitoring. So, Sufyan, can you please show that clip?
Yes, I'm just getting that up. Sorry, Jean, just give me 1 second.
So this is a clip from the 16th of July, our first Zoom public meeting, and Julian Bell was very largely featured in that, and he answered lots of questions and talked a lot about what Ealing is doing.
Yeah, if you just give me 1 minute, guys. Sorry, I do apologise for this. Right, I'm just going to start sharing my screen now, and then you guys should be able to see it. Can you all see my screen? Yeah. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Yeah. Yes. Right. So if we just...
This is an independent consultant who we hired to actually deliver this air quality strategy and monitoring, and it will begin in August. Obviously, we have asked and made clear to Berkeley that they should continue to do their monitoring, and also with Caden and the gas holder site, we would want to ensure that there is adequate monitoring.
So as you've just seen, he clearly says about the air quality monitoring. Yeah, Jean, back to you.
Okay, so that's Julian Bell. I'm sure most people know he is leader of Ealing Council. He featured largely on our 16th of July Zoom meeting. Very interesting about what he said there, because Cash Group have not heard anything at all, nothing at all back from Julian Bell since the 16th of July. We have sent him 2 letters by email. We have had no response at all. He's not apologised for not being able to attend this meeting. Indeed, all councillors were sent by cash an invitation to this screening, and it is with much regret that we have to tell you that very few councillors have shown any interest in attending tonight. I think we do have maybe 4 or 5 or 6 councillors here, which is great, and they are most welcome, but the large majority of Ealing councillors have shown no interest in this meeting, which I think is a big scandal. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, so much for local democracy in action. The Guardian film, as we say, has proved to be of popular interest and has been viewed just over 25,000 times on the Guardian website. So now we're coming to a main part of our meeting, which is us together watching the film. And then afterwards, we're going to have questions to the panel. And then there's going to be more questions from people in the audience. So, Sufyan, can you show the film? And if everybody can mute, that'll be great, so we don't have any outside noise.
I'll share my screen again. Right.
Is this your bedroom?
Yes. When we first used to open the windows, we used to get this foul smell. A bit like metal, petrol, tar. I mean, everybody tells us, oh, it's safe, you know, but how safe is it? I don't know what it's doing to me, and I don't want to become sick.
Are you aware of the old gasworks development?
Behind those houses there.
Yeah, do you ever?
Almost smell make you sick. It smell like gas.
Like gas? Yeah.
They were digging.
Yes. Do you know for Southall? Because it's an old gasworks, the source contaminated with things like benzene and naphthalene.
There's no such thing as too much of clean air. If you put pollution into the air, people are going to get sick. Like, that is a standard. That is just a truth.
A couple of people in these houses.
Yeah.
That are unwell. Children got asthma, chest problems, breathing problems. There's many families suffering from asthma. There's people living in oxygen tents, children.
To date, there hasn't been any investigation into the health impacts. Really, what we are seeing is potentially a ticking time bomb. Hi, hello, how are you?
How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Come on in.
Thank you.
I have the high-vis jackets for later on. So it's Stop Poisoning Southall. These were really positive when we were out campaigning, stopping members of the public, handing out leaflets, telling them about what was going on. So yeah, it was really good to kind of like have a very strong, visible presence. Do you know for Southall? Hello, do you live in Southall? Do you get the smell from the old gasworks? Aren't you lucky? How did I get involved? It started as a conversation between myself and a neighbour. Do you know about the odour from the site? It's still ongoing. We're still suffering very badly. We noticed on social media that people were complaining of.
Sufyan, have we lost the sound? Sound has gone, Sufyan.
It's standing by and allowing people to be poisoned in their homes.
Yes. Oh, it came back for a moment.
since Sunday evening, 9:30. Then I've got another note saying heavy petrochemical plastic smell. We've just found after possibly a year and a half to 2 years while they were working, slowly that certain things were starting to happen to the family. My sister was here for nearly 7-8 months, and in August she got diagnosed with cancer. My father just went for a routine scan in January, and our life spiraled out of control, and we found out he had cancer. I can't for 100% say that the site is, the cause of it. I don't know, but we've been breathing that air in. I don't know if it's had an impact.
As a council, we are aware of the concerns raised by individual residents and members of the group Clean Air for Southall and Hayes, CASH. The treatment of contaminated land at Southall Waterside, the old gasworks site, has resulted in some unpleasant odours in the area. Air quality monitoring has taken place on site, and the results show that there is unlikely to be a risk to the long-term health of the nearby population from the chemicals detected. Mr. Bangu.
That's what the scientists say.
Sorry, you talk about unlikely. It was unlikely that I was going to fall ill with chest pains, but I did. For a year and a half, I couldn't walk more than 50 to 100 yards without stopping. My friend's children's ended up in hospital. It's unlikely that we're going to fall ill 6-7 times a year, but they did.
I mean, you sit there and you say it's unlikely to cause any effect. I don't know. Are you happy with that? That you're unlikely to die?
I want it in writing.
I've lived in South for 49 years. I've lived in the same house with my mum. In 2018, she started having breathing problems, right? She was diagnosed with having lung cancer that started in her airways. She breathed in this muck, this rubbish, these toxins, all through the time that this work was being done. Can you categorically tell me that those fumes didn't contribute to her death?
I couldn't because I'm not a medical or a scientist.
But the scientists said it could.
Don't brown Black Lives Matter and argument? Isn't my blood red like yours? Why are you showing us that you really don't give a damn about the residents of Southall?
I absolutely do, Kat, and if I thought there was something more I could do, I would be doing it. If I had a solution that was going to make the majority of people in this room happy, of course, it's innate in us to want to deliver that. And every life matters in this case.
It seems like the authorities just don't care that we're being poisoned. As far as they are concerned, it's all within regulatory limits. That Berkeley Group are going above and beyond requirements. But when people are saying that they have symptoms that are the same symptoms for benzene poisoning and naphthalene poisoning, I don't think these symptoms should be dismissed.
Southall is within the top 10% of the most deprived areas in London. Deprivation is highly linked with chronic stress. So we already knew from the big data that you guys are already a very susceptible community. That should have been one of the first things that PHE or the environmental agency should have done, is understood you guys first as a community, understood that you guys were in a very susceptible zone for health-related issues due to air pollution, and brought those recommendations down and been very, very conservative. So if you think of your response system as a scale, you were already like this. So what we're arguing is that any burden that comes in does that to your system. This is an extra burden.
Yeah, you can.
This is shrunk. Oh dear. There's all different sizes in there. Yes, there's large, extra large, and extra. Well, no, they haven't shrunk because. Here comes Angela.
So what we're going to do today is introduce you to some people who are unwell. Now the families have been suffering for the last 5 years. Shall we?
Yes, please. Yeah, we'll follow you.
Along here, they've all complained. I think the third house they've actually got his father used to go for long walks in the morning while the construction was going on, and he actually passed away with pneumonia. He got
Pneumonia?
Yeah.
So that's the third case that I know of.
Of course.
Yeah.
How's your health?
I think
Yeah.
I can't go out because the dirt.
From the gasworks?
Yeah.
2 years ago, when it was summer,
Yeah.
heat wave,
Yeah.
open the windows.
Yes.
And I phoned them up, the dirt will come in. They told me, why don't you close your windows?
Where did, if you don't mind me asking, where did the cancer start? In your lung or?
Lung.
Yeah.
In your lungs?
Yeah, from my mouth and from the...
Exactly the same as my mum.
My wife's had a lot more headaches recently when we've seen work happening.
Psychologically, what do you think's been the impact on this community?
In all honesty, I want to get away from here as soon as I can, and that's in the way.
Really?
Yep.
Do you feel it's pushing you out of Southall?
It is, yeah. I was born and raised here. I've lived in this house when I was born. I'm literally just up the road over now. So, 34 years I've been living on this road, but I don't want to be in this area anymore with the way it is, with the way it's developing.
So we feel a smell, like, you know, it directly hit my brain. What I would say, I cannot explain in words, but you know, it is very weird. When I smell this, it in fact, you know, psychological fear, I would say. My wife has a very
Hello. From the December, she started to have some lack of oxygen. She couldn't breathe, she couldn't respond, she couldn't move, she couldn't ask me, and then we had to call the ambulance. They came and took her with the oxygen mask, and they give a lot of things to recover. She was vomiting a lot, had a head pain, and like this 3 times. Well, I started to do my searches quickly because we didn't have another episode of this. And I found the hyperobatic oxygen therapy. It's a chamber who gives the oxygen, 100% oxygen. 1.5 hours every day, 5 days a week.
Would you like to move?
We have to do something.
Yeah, we have to do something
but there's
because
still
this is too dangerous.
Yeah, I want some safe place to live.
The thing is, you can't prove it 100%, but it's my own personal view is that, you know, people were not suffering from these illnesses before. Maybe they still would have developed it without the Waterside development being there. But how do you know 100% that it hasn't caused it?
Even if it hasn't caused someone's cancer, it's just so immoral for somebody who is dying to be in their home and to endure the indoor air pollution, the stench. So their home, where they should be able to pass away in comfort, becomes like a prison. Do you think most of these have been sold now?
No, they're empty. Look, they're empty.
It was like a concrete jungle.
When was the last time we saw you?
Before coronavirus, when we were still able to go door knocking and speaking to residents about their experiences. But obviously, the lockdown had a massive impact on our ability to campaign. So much of what we did was actually online. We are here today to put our demands that the air quality monitoring strategy must be in place, and there must be a proper investigation of the health crisis in Southall before the next phase of the development takes place.
I've spoken to many doctors, and a lot of people have died in this area.
And the concern you think is a link to air pollution?
Of course. I mean, we've got cancer on our street. There's many families suffering from asthma, children suffering from asthma.
The reality is we live in an area that is very economically deprived. You can't see it, but people live in overcrowded accommodation. Quite frankly, I'm black. If I lived in an affluent area, in a nice spacious home, somewhere in the county of Surrey, my risks of contracting COVID would be lower. And we are concerned that the combination of coronavirus and the air pollution is going to lead to even more deaths.
Anything positive come from lockdown, the pandemic?
The one thing that I would say is really illustrated by the pandemic is the sense of community. And we are still determined. My attitude is, I'm not going anywhere. Do I die quietly or do I die fighting? I know which option I'm choosing.
Okay, thank you, Sufyan, for showing the film. We're going to move to some questions prepared by the cash group, but we would like questions from you. If you'd like to use the chat function to ask any questions, you can ask in person or I can read it out for you.
Many cities and towns remain deserted despite the government's plea for people to get back to work.
The actress and loose woman panellist Denise Welsh believes that this is the result of scaremongering by many in the media and government. Joins us today.
What's happening here, Sufyan?
Dr. Sarah Kaya to explain more on all of this. Denise, what?
I think we've got a bit of a problem. I'm not sure. Sufyan, can you work out what's happening?
I think someone's audio's on.
Okay, if everybody could mute, that would be great.
Yeah. Very quickly, Sufyan, can you let Jo Griffin back in, please?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I saw her in the waiting room.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So everyone is now on mute, to my knowledge.
So,
apart from myself.
Thank you, Sufyan. Thank you. So we have questions, 4 questions for our panelists, which is absolutely great. It's going to be asked by different members of the cash group. Can I just go back to Mark Wiltshire? I think I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about him, because we had a public meeting which was organised by Ealing Council on the 10th of July last year. And there was an afternoon event prior to the public meeting, which was at the Dominion Centre in Southall. It attracted 200 people, very, 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 very angry residents at that meeting. And before that meeting, there was a couple of hours of just kind of meet various experts. And when one of our cash group explained to Mark Wiltshire, Director of Safer Communities and Housing for the Borough of Ealing, what she should do about the problems of pollution from Southall Waterside, Mark Wiltshire, in front of witnesses, at least 3 or 4 of us, he said his response about what she should do about the pollution, his answer was to move. Absolutely unbelievable. This was his solution, that she should move out of Southall. Okay, so now we're coming on to the questions, and I think it's Sufyan first of all to Mr. Sharma.
Yeah. Yeah, so as Jean mentioned, my question is for Virendra Sharma MP. Right, so we've not yet received a response from Councillor Julian Bell to our letter sent shortly after the public meeting on matters of independent air quality monitoring, the air quality consultant and the commissioning of health research. As our MP, can you obtain the information and the answers for your constituents, please?
I have spoken to Julian, and I had some communication with Angela as well. I have spoken to Julian, and I will be chasing him to respond as quickly as possible. But I cannot say on his behalf when he will, but I will certainly ask him to respond to that request as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so now we've got a question for Kyri, the producer of the great film, and it's going to be asked by Jo Griffin.
Good evening to all. Hi, Kyri. Did you get the general expression filming of, well, with us for nearly a year, that many people are affected by the air pollution? As a seasoned filmmaker, producer, covering social injustices all over the world, how do you feel about the situation that the residents find themselves in Southall? Thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for screening tonight, and I hope you all enjoyed the film. The short answer to your question, Jo, I guess is there's a lot that we heard while filming. There's a lot of people that we spoke to while filming that don't feature in the film. One of these reasons is because we filmed with you guys for a very long time. Like you said, over the course of a year, we kind of filmed with you. And we only had a finite amount of time that we could make the film. And another reason why we couldn't include some of the things that we were told by residents is for legal reasons, simply put, because there's certain things that we can't put out there without hard evidence, essentially. But just going around speaking to yourself, speaking to Angela, speaking to Jan, being at the public meetings where lots of people are complaining about the odours and falling ill since the work started, in my mind, there's no doubt that there's a link there. And looking at other areas and in the UK and in other countries where, you know, there's been developments on gaswork sites, or, you know, there are still currently running gaswork sites near residential areas. There definitely seems to be a link between these odours, these toxins being in the air, and people's health and well-being, or lack of. Like you said, I've covered similar sort of topics in different countries around the world. I'm born and bred in London. Where I live, where I'm from, Berkeley Group are also trying to develop a former gaswork site, a brownfield site. It's quite shocking that this kind of thing happens in a place like London. You expect it to happen in countries where, you know, there's a perceived notion of, you know, a lack of government or you know, corruption and things like that. But yeah, it's something that, covering this story, I definitely feel that there is a link between the two, yeah.
Thank you very much. Can I just add, on behalf of everybody that was involved, we'd like to thank you and Jo Griffin. Thank you very much. We will remember you for the rest of our lives, as to say. Thank you. We appreciate that.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so now it's a question for Jo Griffin, who's the Guardian journalist who works, I think, quite closely with Kyri sometimes, and it's going to be asked by Jan.
Good evening, all. Good evening, Jo. My question is to you, Jo. The buck appears to have been passed between Ealing Council, Public Health England and the Environment Agency. What did you think of the responses to your inquiries that you received from these stakeholders?
Hello, Jan. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me and thanks for showing the film. Can you hear me now, Sufyan, and everyone else? Everyone can hear me good.
Yeah.
Well, in many ways, I mean, I started looking into this story and talking to people in Southall in early 2019. And I think my experience over the past year and a half has mirrored that of the residents in some ways, in that I've been knocking on lots of doors, looking for answers, trying to talk to the statutory bodies and of various authorities, and nobody seems to be willing to assume responsibility for the safety of this site or the health of the residents. So it's kind of been a bit of a wild goose chase for me as well, in a sense. Berkeley Group, as you know, and Ealing Council have repeatedly said that, repeatedly referred to the PHE report where they say that there's unlikely to be a long-term effect on people's health. But when I've asked Public Health England what should be done about certain findings that they've reported in their review last year, for example, that naphthalene levels needed to be reduced urgently, they've told me to go to Ealing Council and ask what action they were going to take. When I asked them whether they were going to, I asked them for their comment on Cash's call for a health investigation. They said this was a matter for Ealing Council. So it's been a bit of a circular kind of a thing that the buck has been passed, I think, between the various bodies. And if someone had told me a year ago, or more than a year ago, a couple of years ago, before I started looking into this, that this situation could exist where there's a huge site with very highly contaminated land, lots of people complaining about their health, no evidence whatsoever that the land is safe, and yet nobody seems to want to take responsibility for it, I wouldn't have believed it. And I suppose for me, the idea that this is a matter of public interest and that lots of people like me wouldn't believe this could happen, that's been one of my motivations for covering the story. But just one point that I want to make about accountability, I think accountability is very closely linked to political will to do something. And in all of my, in my sort of search for answers with various bodies, Ealing Council, Public Health England, and then the Berkeley Group, Environment Agency, there doesn't seem to have been there doesn't seem to be the political will to solve this situation. There's no proof that these toxins are causing ill health, but there's no proof that they're not causing ill health either. And surely, if the political will was there, somebody would say, well, Ealing Council, one would hope, we need to get to the bottom of this. What's going on? There's enough already. There are enough complaints, there are enough reports of ill health for us to really find out what's happening. So that's been my experience of covering this story.
Thank you, Jo. And can I just reiterate what other Jo Bangu said? You know, we do appreciate everything that you and Kyri have done, because to be honest, without you following the story, we wouldn't have got this out there. So on behalf of myself, I would just like to say thank you, a big thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Jan and Jo. Just to say, we're also welcoming, if that's the right word, we do welcome them, but people from other potential development sites of old gasworks. There is a network forming. This is not going away. These are very, very serious issues. And it's not just, as Kyri was saying, that, you know, where he lives, there's potential developments that could be very harmful. So there are lots of questions still to be asked. And our last one from the CASH members is going to be asked by Angela, and it's for Dr. Sahota. Angela.
Good evening, Dr. Sahota.
Good evening.
Has the GLA Health Committee considered Cash's evidence for the investigation into COVID-19 and BAME, otherwise known as Black and Ethnic Minority Communities?
Thank you for that question, Angela. First of all, I want to just say that I identify with the circular position which Jo was describing. I also found that the circular position, you know, that no one wants to hold this baby. But what has happened now is that from now on, any further developments taking place on contaminated sites, their responsibility will be put clearly on the local authority. to monitor them. In terms of your question specifically, the COVID-19 pandemic showed us how the BMA community has been disproportionately affected by the virus, and it actually showed us that it was the inequality that exists in society that played up, and particularly air quality was very important. So we have taken new evidence board, but we haven't, we're gathering information by all providers. The report will come out later on this year, probably October, November. So I haven't looked specifically at your, in the committee stage, but we have received your evidence, right? And we will be looking at it in the context of producing our report.
Thank you. I have one more question for you. How do you feel about not receiving a response to your letter to Julian Bell after his office confirmed that you would receive a reply last week?
Well, I haven't received a reply as to 7:30 this evening. I checked my emails before I came to this meeting, and I joined with Virendra Sharma that we should put pressure, and I am disappointed that I haven't had a response. I would expect a response from Julian in a much more definitive way, and I'm disappointed. And I think I, along with Virendra, will put pressure on Julian Bell to respond to your question. But I am extremely disappointed.
Thank you, Dr. Sahota.
Okay, thank you, Angela and Dr. Sahota. We have had a number of questions coming in. Virendra Sharma's had to leave to go to another meeting, which he did tell us about. So he said any questions to him we can forward and he will actually answer them. But we have a number of people who would like to ask a question. So could I call on Hilary Wise? I think she's got a question for Kyri. Can you unmute, Hilary?
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I put in two questions actually. One was, did the makers of the film actually try to interview the people in the Berkeley group? If so, what response did they get? And also, it seemed to me, you know, listening to people speculating about illnesses and so on, surely the evidence of the local GPs, the local hospital, would be really, really important there. So people can't say, oh, it's just sort of hearsay, psychological or whatever, you know. So was that also looked at?
Hi, Hilary. So to answer your first question, we did actually reach out to Berkeley Group very early on when we started filming. So this would probably be maybe end of last year or beginning of this year. Might have been January this year, actually. With a request to sit down with somebody, even not even necessarily on camera, but we wanted to speak to someone at Berkeley Group with specific questions that we had about the site and things that we had heard from local residents. I emailed them maybe 3 or 4 times and never got a response back. The only time we got a response back from them was when we were getting ready to publish the film and the article, and I think Jo Griffin emailed them with some questions so that they could have a right of reply, which is included at the end of the film. But regarding a phone conversation or an interview, although they were requested on my behalf, that we didn't hear anything back. And I'd just like to add something to what Jo Griffin was saying earlier about kind of people passing the buck. Again, early on when we started filming, so shortly after I'd kind of met CASH members and spoken to them about their experiences with the gasworks, I got in touch with Ealing Council to have a conversation with them regarding the most up-to-date PHE report regarding Southall Waterside. I got a response saying that it was a report that was made by PHE, so that I need to talk to PHE regarding specifics on that report, which is what I did. I went to PHE and asked them, and they said that they had made the report on behalf of Ealing Council, and so that I need to talk to Ealing Council. It was very difficult to get answers from either of those two. The only time I the Ealing Council started reaching out to me was after I turned up at the public meeting with camera. And that was the first time that I kind of got any real face time with them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yes, and well, maybe Dr. Sahota would have something to say about what local GPs have said or witnessed. You know, the views of local GPs who see cases directly.
Yes, I think, look, it's very important when people go to the GPs, if they point out that we live in the vicinity of the gasworks site, that they may record it for that purpose. But I think we can see that there's been more instances of asthma in people in Southall, and air quality has effect upon it. So we can get that report data. But to particularly link it to the site would be difficult unless it's been recorded specifically for that purpose. And that's why I think it was very important when other groups approached for advice from Cash. We were saying, Angela said to them, when you go to GP, make sure that you get them to record the fact that you live in the vicinity of that development site. So it's linked up. I think that sort of data hasn't been collected so far. But apart from the fact that, of course, we know that air quality does have an impact on asthma and upon other conditions too. But that sort of data would be difficult to extract because it hasn't been recorded, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you both. We have several questions from David Marsden, who's a Southall resident. David, would you just like to ask one or two of them to whoever one you want to respond?
Okay, so there's nobody from Ealing Council here, is there? I don't think so. Let's have a look. Yeah, so Mr. Sharma, it'd be useful to know, I think, for everybody, for all kinds of reasons. Julian Bell used to be employed by you as a parliamentary research assistant. Is he still employed by you as a parliamentary research assistant, or as any other kind of research assistant, or in any capacity at all?
Virendra Sharma's left, but we can ask him that question. Yeah. Well,
I'm getting deja vu.
I can jump in actually if you like. So I'm a research assistant in Mr. Sharma's team.
Ah, brilliant.
But yeah, Julian isn't a member of staff, and there's no other Ealing councillors on there either.
Okay, but Julian was a member of staff, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, before my time.
Do you know when he left? Because this kind of information is hard to get for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's all on the public record. If you look on the, there's like a secretaries and personal assistants register.
I did look, and that's why I'm asking the question, because the last time I looked, he was on there, and I looked recently, and he wasn't. There's been announcements. Yeah.
I think he left before the election, but I don't have the exact, data on that. I'm afraid.
So that's quite recent,
David, but I can certainly ask Mr. Sharma and come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Jean?
Yes.
Can we return to the running order, please? Because we have our guests from Odour Collect.
Okay, true. This is true. Okay, so we're very, very happy that we've got two people from this new app. So thank you for reminding me we're getting back to the running order. So Angela, would you like to introduce them?
Well, first of all, Sufyan, can you bring up the leaflet, please?
Yes, I will. Sorry, Angela, just before that, what are their names?
There is Perrine and Hannah.
Oh, it is Mapping for Change. That's the one.
Mapping for Change.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Mapping for Change got in touch with us after obviously all the publicity we've had. And when I read their email about an app where residents can actually log odour instances, I was excited by this. Because as you know from the public meeting, I said it's very difficult to actually report odour incidences to Ealing Council, because we either keep hanging on the phone for 45 minutes, they don't have an online app themselves, or even an online form. So I thought it's a really good way for us to collect evidence. And it's a really simple app to use that you can download from your phone app store. And what you do is when you experience an odour incident, you go into the app and you can select the type of odour. So for example, this morning I was walking back from Featherstone High School, my daughter, and I got a waft of petrol tar odour, which I think is very likely was coming from Southall Waterside because of the wind direction. So I was able to stop, get my phone out, bring up the app and select industrial odour. And there is a subcategory, and I was able to select petrochemical odour. There's also a box where you can identify where you think the odour is coming from. Now, this is a real development for us as a campaign group. So the leaflet that you can see, Mapping for Change, have very kindly designed this for us. And what we are going to do is actually leaflet as many local streets. We know which local streets are really badly affected, and encourage people to actually download this app and use it. And what we are asking them to do is to report at least twice a day, morning and afternoon. And it doesn't matter whether they smell an odour or not, because you can select no odour when you report. So the whole idea really is to gather data that can be presented to the stakeholders, principally Ealing Council. But I think Perrine and Hannah will talk in more detail about that. So I'm going to hand over to Jan now. Jan will talk to you about how she used the app and what she experienced.
Thanks, Ange. Yeah, I was a bit sceptical about using apps. I'm not great on apps, but I had an instance last week where a friend and I, we were walking along the canal next to the development, and all of a sudden, I mean, I'm not joking, we both felt really unwell. My eyes were stinging, I felt dizzy, and we had to come home. And then on Sunday, I was sitting in the garden, and again, so when I had that instance, I reported it on the app very quickly while I was standing there. And then on Sunday, I was sitting in the back garden, and I could smell, like you, Ange, I could smell like a petrol tar smell. Again, I tried, this time I knew it was coming from Conway because of the way the wind was blowing in my direction. So again, I tried to get on to ringing Hillingdon Council, had the same problem with them. You couldn't ring them, you had to do it online, odour nuisance online. So I went in there, and you have to be registered to complain about the odour. So I gave up, and I again logged into this app and recorded what the smells that I was finding. And like you say, Ange, it gave you the option of where do you think it's coming from, what the intensity of the smell is, what the smell is. And I think it's great for us because at least then that can collate the evidence that we need to prove how much this is affecting the residents in Southall.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Right, so
can we go back to normal screen?
Yes, we can. Sorry. We back?
No, I don't know. Perrine or Hannah, are you happy to talk about, from your perspective, how you will use the data?
Is Perrine unmuted? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think. Can everybody hear me? Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much for having us. It's great to be there. My colleague Hannah and I are going to say a few words about the app, but I think there's a lot of questions still going on, so maybe we'll be quick so you can answer those amongst yourselves. But essentially, yes, it's great to see that you already have a great ownership of the app and that it is useful. And the reason why it exists is that there is a real lack of effective means to monitor others, as you are experiencing amongst yourselves. And using this app, amongst all residents, whenever you feel a smell that is unpleasant or even a nice smell, you can record it. The more people will record others on this app, the more evidence you will have. And the more evidence this acts as hard data that you can bring to the council and that will establish the picture of what your neighborhood smells like. And I think this is really important insofar as it is very probable that the extent of the issue is perhaps misunderstood by the council itself, because there is a lack of representation and there is a lack of understanding of what the issue is. And it's even aside of establishing a causal link between the development and the gas and the dust and the air quality that this might have on your health, it's also important to actually have evidence to say that your quality of life is altered because of the odor that you smell on a daily basis in your neighborhood. And hopefully using this app, you will be able to at least gather a picture of what your problem is. I don't know whether, Hannah, you want to add something to this?
Just really that the app is kind of one tool that we use in, it's part of a big project basically, which is why we've got funding. It's an EU project. So working with communities, we would basically work with you guys and maybe try and get in touch with Ealing Council from a neutral stance with the data, with the evidence. So we're not going with our opinions, we're not going there with any agenda, we're going there with facts. And basically be neutral in the same way that we'd go to Berkeley Homes. Yeah, we kind of represent, I suppose, the scientific side and the evidence side with no emotions and no kind of, as it were, sides. So hopefully we'd be more likely to be listened to and they may be responsive, although I know it's not sounding positive from what any of you have said. It's another angle basically that you haven't tried yet, so it's worth a go, but we can only really do that, as Perrine says, with evidence and with information. Otherwise it's opinion rather than data. So that was really just another thing to add, and you know, we're here to support you as part of this project. So
Anna, have you approached Ealing Council yet?
Perrine?
Yes, we have. I sent them an email on the 25th of August, and I sent them a second email stating pretty much the same things that I had said in my first email on Monday, so yesterday, the 7th of September. I have addressed Mark Wiltshire. I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry. And I'm waiting for an answer. I haven't been answered yet.
Okay, thank you.
But again, this is where the evidence comes in. If we can approach them with some new information and we can say we've got 400 observations or 40 observations either of evidence that, you know, this is what your residents are saying, it gives us extra weight really.
Can I ask a question on behalf of our allies? I know that there are residents in North London affected by the gasworks there, and they talk about a horrible odour, which we identify with. Can they also use the app, or do they need to approach you first to see whether you could collate the data and represent that to their local council?
So yeah, the app is available for anybody to use literally all over the world. We've got people in Chile using it, people in Uganda using it, anybody can use it. The difference comes with, in a sense, the wider project that we're part of is where our limitations lie in terms of time. So we can support you guys and we can take it to another level using the information, but our time is limited. So we're limited to the number of communities we can support beyond using the app, basically. So they can have the evidence and, you know, they can use it how they want, but yeah, so anyone can use it, but our time is potentially the limiting factor.
I think it's maybe important to say that we remain there to support any user with the app. If ever there is question, they can always address it to, we have our email address at the bottom of the flyer, and for anything, if the app is not working, if you can download it, you can make requests to us and we'll be there to support.
Can I say, and I'm really excited that the next step for the campaign group is to actually get out there at grassroots level and leaflet the local residences and really influence people to download an app. And I'm not a techie person. It is so simple to use that it's become like second nature to report twice a day.
That's great. Yeah, I just think that's really, really so beneficial what you produced and Kash will be able to use, because one of the threads of tonight, and in fact over the last 2 years, is that the response from Ealing Council is really, 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 really poor. We have some councillors on here. I don't know if anybody would like to comment. You know, we invite everybody to participate in this meeting.
I believe you've got a couple of councillors.
Don't want to, you know, force them to, but if there's any reaction at all, now is a good chance to even say they would talk to Julian Bell or Mark Wiltshire or anything, you know, clutching at straws. Maybe not. No. Okay. We mentioned some of the other groups that are here. I mean, Bridget from Brighton has a question. I wonder if Bridget would like
Jean,
to.
I think Just Kieran is trying to.
Oh, sorry, Just Kieran. Just Kieran. Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm between all these different platforms. I couldn't figure out how to.
Yeah. Welcome, Just Kieran.
I just wanted to say that I will definitely. I've been making notes during the entire meeting, questions that have been raised, questions that I've sort of also got in terms of how the council can use the data that Odour Collect will be collecting. I think it's an interesting question that Dr. Sahota has raised as well. You know, what kind of way the data can be used. And I'm interested to, actually maybe this is something that Odour Collect could answer as well, whether it's something that could be used in a statutory nuisance case, for instance. Is it something that has sort of legal weight? So those are the sort of questions I will be taking back to the council. I also have written to Kash on a number of occasions, stating I've also written to Julian Bell to say ask for a response. I can follow that up again, and I will also get in touch with Mark Wiltshire to ask why there's been a delay in getting back to Odour Collect. And just to put out there for everybody, I'm very happy to I'm open for contact with members of the community, with Kash Group, if there are any issues that you need sort of responses on, you're not getting it. That's my role, that's why I'm here. And, you know, I've on several occasions visited the site myself, done walks with members of the group, and I, you know, completely empathetic with the really difficult struggle that a lot of people face living alongside the site. And it's something, you know, that I think it's in everybody's best interest to try and look for a solution to help people's everyday existences in their homes be more pleasant, because right now I know that a lot of people are suffering, and I think the videos really underline that too. So I don't want to take up too much space, but that's sort of what I've done in this meeting, and going ahead, what I will continue to do as well.
Thank you, that's much appreciated, Just Kieran. What about Bridget now from Brighton? Is there anything you would like to, the question you have written, would you like to ask it in person and get...
Well, I did write, I don't want to take up anyone's time in the meeting. My question was, what would you advise campaigners down here to focus on? Because work on our gas site hasn't started yet, haven't got planning permission, it's early stages. But one of the things we're thinking, well, one of the things I've got from this is maybe everybody in the area needs to start now having regular health checks, maybe, so it can be monitored. And I'm also thinking maybe we need to crowdfund to get our own independent environmental consultant who would do, I don't know what they would do, but they would be independent and not part of the council. So I'd welcome, honestly, I really don't want to take up anyone's time. So if anyone wants to just message me on the sidebar in the chat bit, that would be brilliant. Thank you. Good luck, we're with you. We're following in your footsteps, I'm afraid to say, probably.
But Bridget, just to reassure you, you're not wasting anybody's time, because this is a growing issue. You know, certainly right across London, beyond London, you're in Brighton. I know Dr. Sahota is very strong on, it's almost a national scandal, really. Jo, did you want to?
Something, Jean. Yes, I think since the video and the article, I've heard myself from a resident in Bow who's been experiencing similar symptoms to the residents in Southall and some of his neighbours, and also from a resident in Haringey. I don't know if Sharon is here today, but this is something that I think, you know, it's just the tip of the iceberg, basically. If you think that Berkeley St William is eyeing around 30 gasworks redevelopments in the southeast and London alone, and possibly more than, or around 200 around the UK, this is something that people really need to become aware of, and together we can sort of try to find ways to press for solutions and better remediation and all those things, independent air quality monitoring and all the things that Cash has been talking about.
Can I add, Bridget? I think it's really advisable to make social media your friend. So before we got lots of coverage, I used to go out and about with my children making videos on my smartphone. And we started by having a public page on Facebook, and then a closed group, and then we extended to Twitter, even Instagram. And I was a bit reticent about Instagram because I thought, well, that's a young person's place. I don't know how to engage with that. But, you know, you quickly learn the skills to effectively use those platforms to get your own narrative out there. I mean, there was a video that I think it was Jan who filmed of me and my kids outside of Blair Peach Primary School. I don't know if you remember, Jan, we were there and it was stinking that evening. It was during the holidays. And that particular video has had hundreds of hits on Facebook, and it wasn't sophisticated, it was just on a smartphone, but it's telling you a story of visual images that really captures the attention. And, you know, our Facebook closed group only started with one person, me. Now we've got about 550 people. And it's really sort of getting word out there, and people in the media will trawl social media for the next story.
Can I just add, if you don't mind me saying, Ange, that, yeah, I mean, it started off with about, I think it was you and me and David. I mean, we were just commenting on other social networks, weren't we, about Southall. And it was quite astonishing, really, how we contacted Berkeley Homes about our concerns and everything. And they deliberately tried to tell us that nobody else in Southall was complaining, which we found absolutely ridiculous. Because if we were smelling it on this side of Southall, people in Beaconsfield Road and that side of Southall must have had it twice, 3 times as bad. And I remember that one night that the 3 of us went knocking on doors on residents on Beaconsfield Road, and the response we had from people made it all worthwhile. The response we had from people saying, my God, we thought we were going mad. We thought we were just dreaming it. We thought we were, you know, this wasn't happening. And that gave me, you and David the fight that, you know, this was not going to happen to the residents in Southall. And along the way, we've had Berkeley Homes try and stop us. We've had Ealing Council try and stop us. They tried to prove, they're trying to make out that we're mad, that we're scaremongering.
We're poisoning ourselves.
Exactly, we're poisoning ourselves in our own home. And it just gives us the fight to carry on. And no, we won't move. We won't be pushed out of Southall. And all I can say to other residents, like the ones in London and the ones in Brighton, just don't give up. Don't give up. Stand your ground.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a comment really from Rena, who's also a very active Southall resident. Rena, it's really about the study you did on the monitoring and the statistics. Rena, you still here? Can you see Rena? Who did an analysis? Sufyan, can you see anybody?
He's just put in the chat.
Yeah.
He just said her audio is not working.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so I'll just read this comment out from Rena, who's very active in Southall too. She says, I did an analysis of the report. This is about the monitoring statistics and data. And in their report, PHE, Public Health England, have given many limitations to the research methods used, which makes their findings less reliable than what has been presented by the Council and Public Health England in general. So there's always been a question mark over what data was gathered, how reliable it was, how independent it was. And I certainly think Dr. Sahota talked about that, and Virendra did, and maybe Dr. Sahota can re-comment on that, about having independent monitoring of the data. The second phase of Southall Waterside is going to happen very soon. It could, and it's going to go on for, this whole site's going to be taking about another 30 years to complete. So lots more stuff coming up in the future. Dr. Sahota, can you kind of talk a bit about?
Yes, I think the important thing is that any data we have should be credible. It should be credible to the developer, and it should be credible to the community. And trust is a very, very important thing. And I think with what Jo was describing, this is the same thing which I realized, is that who is responsible for monitoring the air quality? And all roads lead to local authority, because they say, the Mayor of London said that also in the question time to me, saying the planning responsibility sit with the local authority. Even if a permission is given by the Mayor of London, it's the local authority, that's the planning authority, and has the obligation to do so. Now, it's very important that the monitoring should be done. Sorry, one more thing I want to say is that local authority councils are the arbitrators, are the custodians, the guardians of the local communities. They have a duty to look after their residents. And what they should be doing is saying, we will be appointing the consultant, the developer will pay for it, and the data will come to us directly. That data should be published so that everyone can see it, the residents can see it also. Public health authority, public health are only commenting on the data that has been given to them. If that data is faulty, inaccurate, or biased, the opinions based upon that data will also be inconsistent with reality, or will be biased. So I think it's very important that we establish credibility, have an independent monitoring consultant appointed by local council, paid for the local developer, and the data is published and put in the public domain for all of us to analyze and for us to be held into account. And anything short of that is letting down the local resident. And so what I did at the London Assembly level is that any more planning applications that come through in London will have the condition put onto them that the local authority must take responsibility to appoint the monitoring agents, the monitoring consultant, and that data must come directly to the council rather than via the developer, as happened in this case.
Thank you. Yeah. David, did you want to? You put your hand up to ask a question. David Marsden, did you?
Sorry, Jean. Yes, it wasn't a question. It was just advice to the people in Brighton and anywhere else.
Sure.
But basically, I started writing some bit. I mean, just remember the Berkeley Group are very, very rich and powerful. They're hugely influential on government policy and local authority planning and development, much more so than they should be. It's on the public record that they paid their former finance director £9.5 million to keep quiet about allegations of bribery and corruption at the very top of their organisation, rather than go to an employment tribunal. It's a lot of money. Yeah, it would have been far cheaper to go to an employment tribunal. That only came out thanks to, I think it was the Bureau of Investigative, Finance Uncovered, and the Guardian. It was in the Guardian as well. So you've just got to think about the kind of people you're dealing with. Yeah, we know from our experience in Southall that what they do is their modus operandi is to give grants and fundraise to all the local charities and organisations. They're very happy to publicise all their good work in the local community to buy favour, basically. They even got one of their employees on the board of governors of a school right next to the site. Would you believe it? To advise on health and safety, of all things. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. So just be very, very careful about the people you're dealing with. But also, they will gaslight you, as someone has already said. So, stick to your guns, do your own research, get your own data, get an environmental consultant or whatever it is that you think is going to help. And just, make sure you get we're very unfortunate in Ealing. I don't know what it's like in Brighton or elsewhere, but The leader of the council has accepted gifts and hospitality worth over £30,000 over the years from Bartley Group and other developers to go to the MIPIM Property Festival in the south of France every year. He says it doesn't cost the taxpayer any money, which may be true, but it may cost the taxpayers in Southall their health and well-being and quality of life. But he doesn't seem to care about that. Virendra Sharma, I don't know if he's still here, our MP, has been very, very happy to wear Barclay-sponsored high-vis jackets at all their publicity events, smiling for the camera. And it turns out that only after Julian Bell stopped working for him has he decided to support the cash campaign, which may be a coincidence, may not, I don't know. And our local councillors, as people have said tonight, with one or two notable exceptions, have been very reluctant to say anything at all, or let alone get involved and stand in solidarity with residents. And this is a Labour stronghold, which is even more shocking.
Thank you, David. Libby Kemp, if you're still here, you had a couple of questions or comments. Would you like to ask one of them? Is Libby still here? Sufyan?
No, I'm searching her name in the chat box to see if she's here. No, she's not in the meeting currently. I think she's left.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, Jean, I'd like to make a point, hopefully to help the other campaigns. Just think about your own network. Who could possibly help you in developing your strategy and moving forward? I got in contact with an old uni friend, and it's taken me a long time to do it. And to a certain degree, I guess I had to overcome a view that I should let sleeping dogs lie. And coincidentally, she got in touch during the lockdown and asked how I was. So I thought, well, that's, a positive sign. She is the director of graduate studies at a very reputable university. So I said, look, could you put me in touch with air quality scientists, soil remediation scientists? And she's done just that. We had a very promising email come our way today. And the doctor is working on a soil remediation project. So I envisage in the very near future that Cash will have a meeting with her. She also said, I can put you in touch with air quality experts. Because one of the stumbling blocks that we encountered, Bridget, we got in touch with a soil remediation scientist at Brighton University. And he was polite, but his attitude was, I'm not going to do anything pro bono for you. So that's always been our stumbling block, finding scientists who are willing to look at our case free of charge. But yeah, I would say look at your own network. Is there anybody in your network who can put you in touch with somebody who might be able to help you move forward?
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. Actually, I am actually a councillor in Brighton, just so you know. I'm Brighton and Hove's only elected councillor, so that means I've never been in a political party. So I make my own path, hence I'm here with my residents trying to nip anything in the bud or to try and get ourselves organised. So thank you everyone for your messages, really, really appreciate it. It's all about money, isn't it? That's the
Absolutely, thing. Yeah. I mean, we started off as a very, very small campaign group, and we haven't been intimidated by Barclay. We actually turned up a couple of years ago at their AGM. We didn't actually have a firm plan of action, but we went into their pre-AGM meeting unannounced, and we stood our ground. Do you remember, David? And, we told the chairman, who's since passed away, exactly what was going on. And he said, oh, what you've done before didn't grab my attention, but you have now. You've got to be basically an activist and unafraid to take action.
There's a question from Jo Griffin. I don't know, Jo, if you want to.
I've been putting my hand up. Sorry, I keep putting my hand up.
Sorry.
That's fine. It's really something that has long troubled me about this whole story, and it's about the school children in the 4 primary schools in close proximity to the site. And I have never been able to, I've never managed to speak to any of the heads at any of these schools, although I've tried several times to ask them what's going on. Have there been reports of children being sick or teachers being sick or going home early, all that kind of thing? And I'd like to ask Dr. Sahota, is there any kind of mechanism or procedure through which Ealing Council can look into any impact of the site on the health of the school children? Many of these children already have high rates of asthma and different sort of health problems. I think that's recorded elsewhere. And I just wonder, is Ealing troubled in any way by that? Or what? There seems to be a kind of a silence around the primary schools next to the site, and that's something that's always bothered me.
Yeah, shall I come in?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, okay, yes. Well, I think, look, there was once a program where they had, on a BBC news item, 6:30, where the headmaster of Blair Peace School was on television saying that she's concerned about the welfare of her students, right? Had to take them back into the classrooms. So I think this is on the public record. But I don't speak for the council, because I'm not an assembly member. But I think you raise a very important question. What happened in those schools is important. But I wonder what happened to the head teacher who came out in the playground and said, "Look, I'm concerned about my children playing in the playground," and then they had to be taken in, and thereafter there had been silence there. And so I'm concerned about why it hasn't happened. But I share your concerns, but I can't share any more light on it, because I'm not responsible for Ealing Council.
David, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, just to clarify, it was Des Lee, who was the head teacher of actually Featherstone Primary School, which is near where I live, the other side, who was on TV. And yes, we've never heard from him since, and I don't know why he went quiet. Quite a few of our local councillors are on the board of governors of some of the local primary schools. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head if Councillor Anand is on the board of governors at Featherstone Primary School. But I wrote to the head teacher, Mrs. Puri, of Blair Peach Primary School, which is the closest one to the site, in which we found, this was after we found out that the head of construction from Barclay Group was actually on the board of governors, amazingly. And she wrote back a very short and terse email, basically saying, "I'm not going to answer any of your questions, and if you contact me again, you'll be hearing from my lawyers," which I thought was rather odd.
Just to carry on the school theme just for 1 minute, I think Dr. Sahota's had to go. He's got another meeting tomorrow, so he says apologies, and if there's any questions for him further, he will. He's got London Assembly business at 9 tomorrow, so but we can send him some more questions if we have them. But going back to the schools issue, which has concerned me also, having worked in Southall in the college and having been a governor myself at different schools, was when there was this pre-meeting before the public meeting organised by Ealing Council. There was one person who was very heavily involved in monitoring, air quality monitoring. And when I particularly asked him, had there been any air quality monitoring in Southall schools very near the Southall Waterside site, he didn't seem to know what the question meant. So I repeated it. And he said, he could only go into schools if he was invited in, which does seem very strange to me. If there is a real issue and a real concern that first of all, head teachers had to invite the team in to do some air quality monitoring. But also the question is, why didn't they? Why didn't head teachers? So I think there is still a bit of a large question mark over what's been happening in schools, what will continue to happen in schools, which perhaps this group could pursue a bit further. David?
So I don't want to take up everyone's time, but I mean, just another issue with Blair Peach was that they did actually have air quality monitors outside the school before Barclay Group started digging up the soil, and they were removed by Ealing Council. The reason we were told is that they were obsolete and no longer of any use. And even if they weren't, they didn't. We were told they didn't measure or record the kind of chemicals that were being released from the site. Now, you might have thought they would have replaced them with some monitors that would be of use, but they just replaced them with nothing. The other issue about the school there is that it's really worth, if you haven't read it, reading the minutes of the meeting, which are on the public record in the public domain, of the school governors meeting when Richard Wattler, the head of construction from Bartley Group, was appointed. We later found out as a local authority appointed governor. So he was actually appointed by Ealing Council. Yeah. Although when we talked to Tony Pidgley, who is the founder, the late founder and chairman of Bartley Group, he told us it was his fault that Richard Wattler was on the board of governors at Blair Peach School because they would like to do charitable work in the community. But the other issue about those minutes is that the head teacher reported in the minutes, this is in the public domain, that it didn't specify whether it was staff and or pupils, but people were reporting headaches and asthma from very strong fumes coming from the site. And she mentioned health and safety, and she would take action if she felt it was a health and safety concern. So, we've spoken to parents from Blair Peach School, and they've told us that, their kids have had symptoms of ill health. And they've also said to us that actually they've been told to keep quiet by the school and various other people. And there's one character in Southall, Jags Sangera, who's employed by Bartley Group as a community liaison officer. He's a former tobacco salesman, and he also worked as a community liaison officer for Southall Community Alliance, which is a charitable group which now I understand receives some funding from Bartley Group. And he goes around sort of not telling anyone who he is or who he's working for, just saying he's a Southall resident, which he may well be, but I think it's a clear conflict of interest, and it's just not good practice that someone in his position, with his contacts and his influence, should be going around basically trying to make Bartley Group, his employer, look good in the community when in fact they're causing harm. But this needs investigating, and no one's doing anything.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, David, for that. I think we're going to be wrapping up in the next sort of 5 minutes, so we can all leave and perhaps have some dinner or something at 9 o'clock. Is there any Sufyan?
Jean, sorry. Southall Name and Shame has been raising his hand. So can we give him the floor?
Yes, yeah, sure. I haven't seen that on my Yeah.
Anytime I search his name, he's disappeared. That's the thing.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Right. Yeah.
Right. So David brought up a good point, and I was actually going to bring it up before, obviously, when David brought it up. Yeah, Jag Singera. He is I can actually just say a pain in the backside, really, should I say. He actually has someone owning and running our Southall, the Instagram page. So that person has been questioned by us. So we actually went into depth with that page, and we asked them and said, look, who are you represented? Because every single post that you guys have put up has always been regarding Jag Singera. It's showing that Jag Singera can do this. Oh yeah, this is helping the community. And yet he does, it's really shocking that he's got so many people on Instagram, so many Instagram accounts that's going around Berkeley's, just showing out that, as David said, showing out not the flaws, but the good thing about Berkeley's. Like, it's a ridiculous thing. And then I get it that why Virendra Sharma wasn't going to be involved in any of this meeting. And I get it that he only answered mainly one question. But the reason why he really did not want to be involved in it is because he was more scared and skeptical of what questions was going to come up at the end of the meeting. That's all it was. There was no original meeting for him to go into. And that's a load of dog's bollocks. Sorry, I'm afraid to say it, but I'll say it again straight to his face as what he doesn't like what I say. I've confronted him. Most of you guys have noticed it when I did a live stream inside his own office, confronting him in front of every single person before he threw me out. You don't do nothing for the house. You do not do anything for this place. You are not part of Southall. You are someone else. You are just a person as a puppet, a stick up the backside, and that's about it. Someone else is talking for you. Berkeley's is paying your bills. Berkeley's paying for everything for you. Same as Julian Bell. Everyone's paying them lot to shut your mouth, do what you've been told, and this is how it's going to work out. If you say anything more, I'll make sure I'm taking more money away from you instead of giving it to you. That's how it looks like. That's how it's going to be. Southall is a playground for the guys who are up and top notch. Yes, you've got people who work as counsellors in schools. You've got people who work as that because they're part of a Berkeley group. Berkeley Group are trying to get a chain of command. It's the standard structure of every employer, a chain of command. If you stay right at the top, you can filter it down. That's how they're doing it. They're trying to get right to the top and filter down to every single other person. Oh, if I'm in charge of a council of a school, wow, I can go this far. I can control the school. If I go in charge of a shop, wow, I can control all the employees. The employees are under my command. Every single thing is working under a structure, and this is how they are working. They are working in the way of money buys everything from them. That's how they are. Julian Bell is getting done. If I remember right, there was a story about a good few months ago regarding about a hospitality thing that they took out money for hospitality. They were getting paid by Berkeley Group about 300 something odd pounds just to pay for a certain bit. Even the bit where they went to a restaurant and failed to pay at a restaurant because they didn't have the money on them, Berkeley's paid for it. There's so many things that were coming up. Berkeley's have paid for all this stuff. And this is where it gets. We don't have Labour. We do not have the Conservatives. We do not have anyone who's in our support. We are only supporting ourselves. That's why right now I am saying, I've said it to the guys at Cash, you have got our page as disposal. You use it, you want it, you can do whatever you want, you send us whatever, we will post it. Because one way or another, the community is the ones in charge. And we are not getting treated like that.
Thank you very much, Southall Name and Shame, for that very strong contribution. I think we will wrap up now. I don't know if anybody else from the Cash Core Group wants to say anything, like Jan, and then we've got a couple of sort of closing statements. Jan, unmute.
Sorry. Just one of the things I wanted to reiterate what Jo Griffin said. I mean, you know, you're so right. There are so many. There's that school right next door to the development, and as I said last week when I walked along that canal, I couldn't get over the smell and the stench and how I felt. And that is right next door to the school. Is right next door to where I was standing. And as one of the things I've asked the councillors, I've asked Julian Bell, I've asked Virendra Sharma, if they are so committed that, and they're saying that all the remediation work has been done on that site, why is it still smelling? You know, if they want to prove us wrong, that we are making this up, we are scaremongering, all they have to do is go to the site, take an independent soil sample and give us those results. If they come back to me and say, we are imagining that smell, there is no toxins in that soil, then I'll shut up. But I want to know, why can we still smell the chemicals coming off that site if all the remediation has been completed? And nobody comes back to us with an answer.
Thank you, Jan. Yes, I think what we're short of really, which is another major theme, is lack of answers. That's what we don't get. Angela, did you want to say a final thing before I close it?
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly that National Grid are remediating the site of the blue gas holder, and they've acknowledged the strength of feeling in relation to Southall Waterside, and I strongly believe if it wasn't for our campaigning that they would have remediated that site with just odour suppressant. So instead they are investing and spending money on an enclosure, proper air filtration, and air quality monitoring. So I think, you know, it remains to be seen how those mitigation measures will work, but it's a lot better than just digging up soil in the open air and treating it in a so-called soil hospital open to air. I mean, in Australia, they remediate gas sites with an enclosure over them. And I don't understand why that isn't standard practice in this country.
Thanks,
So it's
Angela.
a small movement, but you know, we are moving forward. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very much for that. So thank you everybody for coming and staying the course. We've had quite a few people join and still more join when a few left, so that's great. We've had quite a very good turnout. A few things to finish really. Cash, you can hear, is not giving up. It's getting bigger, the network is growing, alliances are being built, and we now have the use of the app, and that's going to be promoted, as Angela was saying, and getting the leaflets out there so more people will be able to use it and get information. Finally, I just can't, I'm a Labour Party, a proud Labour Party member. I am just appalled by the lack of courtesy, if nothing more, from Julian Bell, the leader of the Labour group and the leader of the council, not to apologise that he couldn't come here, not get back to us, nothing at all. So Cash, as a final statement, I think, Cash will continue to press Councillor Julian Bell for a response to our letter. He is a leader of the council, and it's from him we wish to hear directly, and with all due respect, not from some more junior colleagues. We've had a couple of emails apologising, but it's really Julian Bell where the buck has to stop. So that's going to be one of the main takes from this meeting. We're going to carry on trying to contact Julian Bell and getting, perhaps with some help from Virendra Sharma, Dr. Onkar Sahota, and just various colleagues and friends and other councillors who will fight our corner. So I think on that note, thank you for coming and staying the course and listening and contributing. So keep up to date with Cash, join the Facebook group, get involved, spread the word, and I'm sure this isn't the last meeting we'll be having. So see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.